Today, Eric brought me a situation, and honestly, this one is such a perfect example of how federal construction really works in the real world. So here's what happened. The inspector walks the job this morning. He goes into the mechanical room. He looks up at that conduit run, and the second he sees it doesn't match the drawing, he locks onto it. In his mind, that's it. Contractor messed up. Non-compliant. Tear it out. Start over. He didn't ask a question, didn't slow down, didn't try to understand the context. He just went straight into inspector mode, like he caught somebody red-handed. But here's what the inspector didn't know, and honestly had no way to know. The only reason that conduit was routed differently is because the COR told Eric's electrician, verbally, to move it out of the way of a fire suppression conflict overhead. They weren't improvising. They weren't changing the design because they felt like it. They were doing exactly what the government asked them to do. And the crazy part? The reroute is cleaner. It meets code. It solves the conflict the government wanted fixed. Everything about it is right, except the fact that nobody wrote it down. So the inspector walks in cold, sees something different than the paper, and now, in his version of the story, the contractor is the problem. Now, when you've done enough federal jobs, you see this for exactly what it is. This isn't a workmanship issue. This isn't a contractor taking liberties. This is a government-caused change that never got documented. And whenever a verbal instruction from the COR doesn't get passed along to the inspector or the CO, the government's left hand and right hand aren't talking. And the confusion lands on the contractor every single time. Verbal directions, and this is the important part, they feel efficient in the moment. They keep the job moving. Everybody thinks they're doing the right thing. But in federal construction, verbal directions are like landmines. They sit there quietly until somebody new walks onto the job, sees something different, and boom, now it's a problem. So here's how an expert handles this. First thing, you lock down the facts immediately. Before people forget what was said, before the story starts drifting, you get the electrician who received that instruction to sit down today and write out exactly what happened, the date, the time, who was standing there, and the exact direction from the COR. And you make sure it includes the phrase, at the direction of the government's representative. That line right there changes the entire narrative. Next step, and this is critical, you elevate the whole thing to the CO. Not the inspector, not even the COR, the CO, the only person with legal authority. And the email is simple, respectful, and clear. You explain what the inspector observed, you explain the verbal direction the COR gave, and you ask the CO whether the government wants the current routing left in place or wants to issue direction to change it again. That's it. No arguing, no defensiveness, just facts. And the moment you send that, the responsibility shifts. Now the government has to make a decision, and whichever decision they make, the contractor's on protected ground. Then dealing with the inspector becomes easy. You don't debate with him. You don't try to convince him in the field. You simply say, I've elevated the issue to the CO and will follow whatever written direction the CO issues. That one sentence shuts down the entire argument without escalating anything. And here's the part a lot of contractors miss. If the government decides they want that conduit put back exactly where it was on the original drawing, that is not free work. That becomes a change order or an REA with labor, materials, impacts, the whole thing. And your narrative is straightforward. This extra work is required solely because of a verbal direction from the COR that was not captured in a formal modification. Handled correctly, this is not a crisis. It's not even a dispute. It's an administrative cleanup. At the end of the day, there are only two outcomes. The conduit stays where it is, or they pay the contractor to touch it again. There's no version of this where the contractor eats the cost after following the government's own direction. And let me just say this. If any of you listening ever run into a problem on a federal job, big or small, you can schedule a Zoom with me at GCExperts.com/Zoom. Don't wait until it snowballs. I can help you sort it out fast.